Hello everyone, my name is Marcelo Riera and this is an introduction for Spots, our project for the senior project class. It's also called crowdsourcing parking as well. So team members, that's me, Marcel, and also my partner Carlos Barrios. Our product owner is Dr. Nikki Piscinu, and our instructor is Dr. Masoud Sadhari. So let's start with an introduction of the project. So first of all, the problem. Our application is based on solving or trying to solve parking. Um, well, it's relevant because nowadays there are more cars. There's an increasing amount of cars, and usually they're always in centralized areas. So finding available parking spaces, uh, keeps taking longer and longer. So also another motivation is that even though there are a lot of parking applications already out there, they usually do the same, and they don't really provide any new ideas to solve this issue, and also they're not really that dynamic. Further, they usually don't offer many options for the transactions. So, with that in mind, we came up with the following solution. So, the idea is to have an easy-to-use cross-platform mobile application that will give users an easy and convenient way to reserve parking, as well as option to provide it. So, the idea is that the same community on the application will will publish different parking spots for other users as well as asking for them. So for this situation, we created two users. One is called a consumer and the other one's a provider. A provider is somebody that's providing a spot, a parking space. A consumer is somebody who wants it. So the main focus of the idea of this idea is for cases of crowded areas and where there's limited parking spaces. So for this kind of transaction that we're making, we're not actually buying a parking spot, but we're buying a service for the other party, which is waiting for us. So this is a reservation service, which is the premise of our application. So, well, at the beginning of the project, there were several requirements that we came out with. So we knew we would need a map interface that would allow the different users to see which spots are out there and also to provide them as well. So we would need different navigation between those. We need a clean interface with a left drawer we thought and a bottom drawer, as well as some search bar for looking at different locations that a user may be interested. So we also need a strong authentication system, and because of the nature of our application, we also need to use phone number and give another option such as email as password. One of the really important parts of this application to make it work is that it has to be based on very fast transactions. So for that, there was a requirement of having real-time databases to manage all the application data. So that's also to make it for the transactions. We also one of the requirements that the product owner gave us is that not only have a fixed price as an option, but also actioning for the users. Because the idea is to try to motivate the supply and demand on these crowded areas. So if there are more consumers and less providers, then a consumer may want to like raise a price or so on, depending on if they really need it. So it's really important to have a robust transaction system for this kind of application. And the idea, there are a lot of edge cases, and it becomes kind of difficult to find to manage all of them. So the idea was that the transaction should be very robust. And finally, also the application need to deal with all kind of payments. In this case, it would be like a marketplace solution because other users are providing services and others are consuming these services. So we have to pay the ones that are providing the service and also do the process of the process between the consumer and this provider while taking a service fee for our platform. So based on all these requirements, we came up with the following architecture. So we decided to go with a serverless architecture, which is heavily based on Google Cloud Platform. Um, the main uh, parts on this diagram is a Firebase, which is gonna provide us on the backend with authentication, uh, real-time database access. It's gonna also allow us to have a storage, which we later on uses for images and so on, so the users can have. And so and also authentication, which is they have an OAuth 2 authentication, which we later use for other parts of the backend to authenticate the users and make all the connections secure. So that's on the Firebase part. We also have cloud functions. We do have three subsystems over there. One is the payment subsystem, which is in charge of handling all regarding payments. That would be, first of all, it allows to have different endpoints available for the client in order to ask for a transaction to commit the payment. And also it communicates with Stripe to access to actually perform the transactions. Also, it needs to communicate with Stripe because all credit card information and all sensitive information does not pass by your service directly, but is stored via the client on Stripe. So the idea is to remain PCI compliant, all this via HTTP request. On the client side, though, we're using, because we want to have our platform to be cross-platform, then we're going to have for iOS and Android. Therefore, we're using React Native. So the client is based on React Native, also with Redux. The idea of Redux is that to have an application state available for all the components on the application, which is constantly being updated as there are changes on the database. So the idea is to maintain the, um, the state of the application uh, concurrent to all the changes that are happening on the database. Finally, there are other functions as well that are on Google Cloud, which is authentication on create and on delete, which help us maintain our backend of the database to keep it clean. So when a user creates an account first, it makes sure that all the information between all the parts is the same, so it's consistent. And also on the delete, it frees all the recurses, all these resources on the database. So this is one use case diagram of the application. So on the left side, we have the client. The client has different uses. The client can search for a parking, or he can log in or sign up. There's also option of directly downloading the app from the stores. And we also is available searching for different spots. And also, once a spot is selected, is able to engage in that transaction, which leads to a payment and finally a review. On the other side, the provider does have the same use cases, but also has the ability to publish parking spots, and from there, it also is available to receive compensation as well as ratings. So ratings will be for both parts. So, well, from all these requirements, then we divide it into four epics, which is the account system. One of them, we also have consumer provider, we also have reviews and transaction. So the first one was account system. That will be mainly having phone number, Google authentication, Facebook authentication, email, and password. Also allowing the users to have different ways to record in case for some reason they change their phone or something happens. So that's the main focus of the Epic, as well as getting to getting the system in place for development. So here's some screens about this Epic. So you can see on the top, this is the flow of authentication. You first log in, you can create an account. There are the different options, and if, well, depending on the option, you get different forms, and you can authenticate yourself. You also have validation codes to make sure and validate any phone number. And also you can use, for example, Google and Facebook accounts as well. So the second epic was the consumer and provider system. This one took two sprints. The first one took one sprint. So for this one, we have the development of the map user interface, the left drawer and most of the navigation, the user drawer, and the search bar function. So here's some screens on this epic. So you can see in the top left, that's the map UI we came out with. Then it comes the drawer with the different menus that we have for the application. Then there's the profile picture, also payment screens, um, so far and so on. There are also history as well, and the different alerts that we also use to communicate with the users. Here are more screens. In this case, this is the user drawer, which allows them to navigate to the different spots that are available. So you can see on the first and the top screens, there are spots that are published in the map. The user can see it on the drawer and navigate them, sort them, filter, and so far so on. Also, we have the search bar at the top, which allows them to search for different locations. As well, it also integrates Google Places API to complete different locations and so on. Then the epic number three was transaction and the action system, which included using the making the GPS system, doing the transactions, doing the action, and doing payments. This one also took planned to be 2 weeks, two sprints, but ended up going a bit further due to payments. So here's some screens. This is the main flow of transaction. On the top, you can see what will be the flow for a provider. They first publish their spot, they put their information, so far so on, and they have this kind of interface which show the time they have and the status of the transaction as well as the price. On the bottom, you can see the consumer part. They can see the spot that provider shared, and they can see the rating and so on, and they can go further and engage in the transaction. So afterwards, if both parties agree, looking at the reviews on both sides, then the transaction starts and you get navigation, and also you get a specific view which allows you to call the other party, and as well as you can cancel given some conditions, and you see instructions, you see the other party's car, and also you can at any point say you're done with the transaction. Once both parties agree, then the transaction completes. This is the equivalent, but for the actioning system. For the provider, in this case, it's going to be similar, which is at the top, but you're going to have some more information on your drawer, which is going to show you the highest bidder as well as what was the starting bid and the highest bid. You also have the option to end the action early if you wish. So, and in the bottom, you also have the flow, which is for the consumer. In this case, going to be slightly different. You also have a if you're willing to bid, you're gonna have a bidding window which shows you how many bidders, live bidders are there, what's the starting bid, and gives you some options to pick your bid, which is gonna be either putting the minimum bid to be accepted or raising it as much as you want to ensure that you get the spot. Um, so everything is live and real time, so you get updates as soon as one of the parties are agree to any of the terms. So this is also the payments flow. So in the top left, you can see, well, there's a provider menu, which is specific for users who want to become provider. They need to sign up with us so that they can get paid. And so once they sign up with us, they get this UI, which shows them their balance and also some information, which is using Stripe's API. And some more details on their account with us. So then you have, well, on the bottom left, you also have payment methods, which show the different cards you have, and they're saved on your account, and also the option to add new cards as well. Then we show at the top right a case of when a transaction finishes, when you have a confirmed trade uh, alert, and finally, if everything goes right, you get a payment successful notification. If there's some issue for some reason, because we do the payments after the transaction is done, not before, like for example, if the card is declined or so on, then we show the messages on the bottom part, which is the red notification showing that there's an outstanding payment. When this occurs, then the account gets locked, so it's not possible to reserve any spots, not publish it, and will automatically redirect you to the payments screen to solve the situation. And as soon as there's a new payment method, automatically the backend detects it and redoes the charge. Finally, you can see on the right there's a history of transactions, which show which is saved for both parts. The fourth and final epic is the review and rating system. So, which is simple, just the reviews for each user and the ratings, and the different, well, they are allowed to have between a 1 and 5 star. So here are some screens. The main idea of the system is that because there are a lot of factors that we cannot uh, take into consideration because we are not actually on our spot ourselves, then we need to develop some trust between the users. So our motivation was to have a similar system to, for example, Airbnb, in which each user rates the other party. So that way, for new transactions, users can see the rating they have and have some sort of trust on this person. So here's some examples. At the top, you can see the 5 reviews, 1 reviews, so on. Every time you want to reserve a spot, you first see the provider rating as well as some minor information. And on the other hand, that too, if you're a provider and somebody wants to take your spot, then you also see um, their profile information as rating, and then you accept it or not for both parts. Finally, yeah, you also have the rating at the end where you can put some more information about why you gave that rating. Sorry. Well, finally, these are the contributions. For my partner Carlos, he did all the setup of React Native as a project, of App Center with the DevOps system. He also set up Firebase and Google Cloud projects for the application. So he also did for the authentication. He also added support for Facebook and also the forget password feature. He also implemented the Maps UI view and the Map UI component itself that we're using for the main view. He also did the profile page, which includes a profile picture, ratings, and different information for the user. He did also the transaction algorithm, which is for fixed price and also the action. He did um, he did the action using Firebase transactions to make it just unary, so there are no changes between one query. He also did this history of user transactions and the review system for the trust and reliability. So my contributions, I set up Redux for the application state, Cloud Functions for some of the backend, and Firebase Admin SDK, which is for doing some administrative functions as well on the backend. I also did the spot location searching, which is the search bar on the top, which uses Google Places API. I was also in charge of doing the transaction recovery, so every time the phone dies or so on, the user their state comes back. Also, the different drawers and views for all the different flows on the transaction. Um, Also, maintaining data consistency using the reader's application state between the database. Also, the part of publishing the different spots for a provider, as well as the payment solution, which is using a marketplace implementation with backend and communicating with Stripe, both parties. And finally, I also did the spots list, which the different options to sort by price, distance, and filter by spot type. So our technologies, the technologies we use, as I said before, React Native, Firebase, Google Cloud, Redux, Node.js, Azure DevOps, GitHub, Stripe, and Express, as well as Visual Studio Code for developing and App Center for all the DevOps. So for verification, we use Android Studio and Xcode emulators to simulate physical devices, as well as our own devices. We use systematic unit and integration testing and authentication system with phone number and email verifications as well. Real-time transaction scenarios were tested for faulty and functional EPA states using the emulators, and payments were also tested with Stripe's test data. Pardon me. So, well, this is the first release of Spots. We were able to finish all the stories, and we think we find some innovative idea for parking on crowded areas. So you well not only you benefit from reserving a parking spot, but also from the ability to publishing and trading from it and getting extra earnings. And also, we're not planning to stop here. We think that this might have a future with to expand to new opportunities on the Spots app. Thank you.